Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Jay Costa, one half of the Nitty Gritty Show. My better half, the other half is downstairs right now. She's watching live though. Katniss is always with us in spirit. Baby had to be fed though, so she's thinking about popping on, but y'all know how that is. So y'all just have me again. But Katniss is always here. She always knows what we're talking about because obviously before we do the show, she has to hear it all week before I talk about it, typically. So I'm sure she's happy that I got other people to share this information with because I know she gets tired of being in my audience of one, I think, all the time. But it's all good. Also, if you're listening, let me know how the audio sounds. I know we had some audio issues last week, but I think I fixed that by adding my compressor and all that stuff back to my mic. So I think we fixed that all up. But if I do sound weird, someone just let me know, right? Because I should be able to get really loud or talk really soft, and you should be able to get the same experience, and I shouldn't be cutting in and out. So if I am, please let me know so I can work on that some more. There might be like one or two little tidbit things I can do, but I think I got it figured out. But just in case if I don't, please let me know. And as always, you're watching. Feel free to throw us a little change, 50 cents, $5, $50, $500. Shoot, $5,000. We out here for real big. We'll take it. But also, we know we have some business sponsors out there that take care of us. Also, keep in mind going forward the Nitty Gritty Show. At least for the foreseeable future. All right. Let's call it 6 months. We're not going to be charging you guys to do a business shout out. So if you're a business in the area and you want to get shout out on the Nitty Gritty Show, all you have to do is hit me up and we'll do that for you. All of the contact information is in the description. Hit us up and we'll be happy to do a business shout out for you. All right. In the meantime, I'll shout out some of our past sponsors. Shout out to like Ford Wellness. They've been on here. Shout out to Granny Sue Records. Shout out to OCB Bullies. Shout out to Oh yeah, shout out to Friendly Faces Barbershop. Shout out to More Than Java Cafe. Shout out to oh man, I don't want to say your barbecue name wrong, so I'm not gonna shout you out this time. I'm gonna shout you out next week, Sean. But yeah, just a shout out a few businesses. You know what I'm saying? Just do that real quick. But thank you guys for coming back. We got a pretty cool show for you. And today, I titled it Presidential Matters. And the reason why is because we have some presidential things to discuss. And actually, before I get into that, some quick shout outs as far as like some media things. So, yeah, before I get into the bulk of the show, let me do this real quick first. So, I did watch a really cool show, me and Katrina. So, I'm always teasing our 4 year age gap. It's really not that big of a gap, right? But it was funny because there's a show on Prime, and I'm just giving this out for free. I'm not getting paid to advertise it. You should be getting paid, but whatever. I saw the title of the movie was called "Girl, You Know It's True." Now, for those that already know, you already know what it's a callback to, and you're right, Millie Vanilli. So Katrina wasn't really familiar with Millie Vanilli and like the whole scandal, like everything that happened with that, like the lip singing, like what I'm saying, like big deal. So we watched that movie together on Prime. I think it's only like a $6 rental, but it was really good, guys. It was really good. I think it's worth a watch. Those that follow me personally on some of my social media, I kind of like called it out and put it out there. It actually was a good movie. You actually learn more about the group. I thought I knew the whole story. Like, oh yeah, they had that song, or it's true. I know they had, like some other things happen. I knew about stuff that happened to certain members of the group, but I didn't know the extensive story, right? So, oh yeah, you see, yeah, let me drop a bomb for you. I see human in the building. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hope my audio is better this time. But yeah, so we watched that show and it was really good. Like I thought I knew the Milli Vanilli story. I thought I kind of knew it top to bottom, but there's so many pieces I learned while watching. I'm not going to give it away here. I'm encouraging you guys to go watch the movie, but it's really dope. Like, you get a movie night with your significant other. Check it out. Girl, you know it's true. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a really good movie. Didn't think I would learn anything new about Milli Vanilli, but I did. And it I think if you know the story, you're really kind of sympathetic towards everything that happens. But then I think when you know it a little bit more in depth, I think it gives you that much more empathy towards everything. So shout out to that movie. That was dope. Also, shout out to getting out and about. So, for those that follow me personally, once again, or Katrina, we were outside this weekend. We actually got a chance to go to the Smithsonian Zoo here in DC. We got to take our lovely daughter Zuri, and like a typical child, she was asleep. I mean, she's only 2 months, so like whenever she's in the car, whenever she's being pushed in a cart, or something like that, the stroller, yeah, she's gonna fall right to sleep. So she was asleep for the whole experience. But I mean, it's just nice for me and Katrina to get outside. We actually went to lunch, so we had some good food. Ziri is well behaved out and about, so that's always nice. So yeah, it was a good time out. It was a really good time out. So we really enjoyed ourselves, and it was dope. So we had a really good time. Really enjoyed ourselves. And thank you guys in the comments. Let me know my audio is sounding better. So thank you. It looks like it worked. YouTube University, guys. Typically, if you have a question, you go to YouTube University for a little bit of help with a little FYI, you know what I'm saying? Or sorry, DIY, do it yourself. It's amazing what you get done, right? YouTube University. So really cool. So yeah, yeah, go check that out if you get a chance. Also, I know there's a lot of good movies coming out. I forget which one came out on the 23rd. Something's out in the theaters. Some good movies out. Movie theaters are probably won't be a thing we'll be doing for a while because the baby. And I never did like it. I don't know about you guys. You go to a movie and people bring their crying babies. It's for a movie. Like I can't help it on a plane. Families got to get to where families got to get to. But in a movie theater, it's like just do like responsible parents like me and Katrina do. We just simply just you know we just watch it at home, like things come out quick. We just watched Bad Boys at home recently. You know what I'm saying? Not strong. Yeah. Let me drop one for my boy. G Fight, you can grab me, man. G, I'm just trying to get at you. I got some stuff to talk about, brother. For real. We need to get at each other. Like, make sure you hit me in the comments later, or my number's still the same. Get at me. Like, we need to talk. But man, so, like, it's happy to be back. And things are going well. So now let's just start moving into the topic of hand, right? Presidential elections coming up, right? Obviously, the DNC just wrapped up. RNC was about 2, 3 weeks ago or so. No, longer than that, probably like a month, because this was the RNC was about. It was leading to the just after Trump's assassination attempt, right? So, and let's be honest, guys, and I'm gonna be very fair in my judgment of both candidates today. Like, this is not about the pick this person or pick that person. Now, if you're not leaning to one person over the other by way of the facts, that's one thing. But I'm just gonna try to push you or prop you any direction. That's on you. It's your vote. You're allowed to use it. If you want to vote for Trump and Vance, do that. If you want to vote for Vance and Wentz, do that. I have my personal opinions on where I think we should lay our vote. People have heard me say where I'm voting, but this is not a way of pushing you either direction. We're just going to go over the facts. And we're going to talk about the power at hand and go from there. Now, however you draw your conclusion, it's how you draw your conclusion. But I'm not pushing you either way, right? So, anyways, honestly, we saw what that looked like, and it was bland, guys. It was like bland chicken. I'm not taking sides. I'm just saying the RNC was bland. Then we saw, and actually, to be honest, Trump, since the assassination attempt, as time has gone over, he doesn't have the same vigor he typically would have, right? He's not as sassy as he used to be. And I see a lot of energy has been sucked out of him. So I think the assassination attempt, we might be now starting to see that have an effect. I think Harris is probably going to crush him at the debate, but we'll see. Only time will tell. So we'll wait for time to show what that's going to look like. But I would definitely say there was a stark difference between the RNC energy and the DNC energy. The DNC, if you guys stayed up, especially us on the East Coast, if you stayed up to 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night trying to watch all those speeches, I mean, they were very engaging. It was electrifying. It was great to see former President Obama and First Lady Obama. It was nice to, see the Clintons out there. It's really more so energized by our very own governor, Westmore. It was energized by some of the younger folks that were there, like AOC, Governor Shapiro, Governor Curry. I really appreciate it. I think that those new voices representing the DNC, because like the RNC, those are really old voices. Pretty nice about Pelosi. I mean, it's cool seeing the past presidents. But outside of that, I didn't have to see a lot of those old gatekeepers like Al Sharpton and all them. Like, there's a lot of new talent out there. I think we could have focused on a lot of new, fresh ideas, younger folks that could carry the torch. And when I say younger, I'm talking about younger for the world of politics. So we're talking, you have to be at least 25 to get into like Congress and stuff like that. But when I say younger, I'm talking about those 30 and 40-year-olds out there. Shout out to like, my good brother Will Jawando, or, like folks like, my somewhere out here in Maryland. And so I was really excited to see Angela Ostabrook. Shout out to everybody that was there. Our good friends, the McKinneys, they stay in Chicago. They were out there. So it was a good time. I wish we could have been out there, but of course, with Zuri, that wasn't happening this time around, so that's fine. There's a season for everything, and this wasn't the season for us to be traveling and going a bunch of places, and that's fine. Um, I know there was a lot of talk around everything going outside of DNC, various protests. I think a lot of people highlighted the whole Planned Parenthood situation as far as them offering abortion services or offering vasectomies and things of that nature. I get it, but the way certain news outlets spun that, I think they took that above and beyond. Keep in mind, Planned Parenthood, because they're a more so liberal group, to support the Democrats, right? Now, it's not to say that everybody who supports Kamala Harris is that far left that they believe in everything coming from that side. But you got to understand, just like the NRA is out there toting guns at the RNC, you're going to have the contrasting difference at the DNC, right? So there's some nice stuff happening at the RNC, especially supporters. I was like, that's wild. And I think equally wild things we saw at the DNC. So keep in mind, unfortunately, right now in America, things are so different between two parties. It's like the contrast between the two is crazy. I would like to see both parties get back to being more so moderate, touching on the things that we really care about. Number one is always money. We think about the safety of the United States, which I'm really talking about right now because the border crisis and all of that is really top of mind when you talk about safety and ensuring America's boundaries, right? Because it's not about those nations south of us coming in. It's about everyone else who could come in through that southern border. It's not just about those nations, it's about everyone who pours in through those borders, right? So I think that's a serious thing that we have to take a serious look into as we're going through this next presidential cycle. And then also keep in mind what's already been tried. We know that we have one of the most comprehensive border bills out there. And we know that Trump, I'm not going to talk in circles here, we know that Trump was really pushing Republicans not to get with it because he's hoping to pass that same exact bill if elected when he's in office, right? And this is a game in bad politics I've seen Democrats, Republicans, and independents play at all levels. Instead of getting behind good bills, whether it's in your city, your state, or in this case, we're talking the nation, I've seen countless politicians go against something because they don't want the new guy or the previous guy getting the credit. And then after an election cycle, we see these guys switch. And it's like, oh, now it's cool to vote for it because you're going to get credit for it. But God forbid we fix something ahead of time. Now we can put this pressure on vote for your life. And let's be honest, there was a lot of actually from both the RNC and the DNC, they're both pushing this propaganda of if you don't vote, it's going to be the end of the world. If you don't vote, this person's going to destroy the world. I get it, right? And it may really feel that way depending on what your beliefs are. But the truth of the matter is, will it be the end of the world? Is it going to automatically kick off World War III? I think in one case, we just got to be a little leery of that. But still, I don't know if it's really that dire sometimes, right? But there are some real things we're concerned about when we look at these candidates. And I think we could do a better job at examining what those things are instead of all the headline anecdotes that we get sucked into. It's like, hey, this person should have 20 new babies. This person started to kill tomorrow. And there are some things that I love you about either candidate, depending on what your beliefs are. But there are some things that are just straight entertainment at best, right? And it's let's not play politics. Let's get into a platform. So with that, I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start talking a little bit about platform because I want to talk about this main focus of this presidential matters two different ways, right? So I've already introed it, but then let's keep it real. Let's look at what's out there, what's tangible that we can look at right now, right? Or what has been said. And then I want us to examine the office of the president or the executive branch that they have direct control over. And then you can start kind of like figuring out for yourself who's your best vote or why do people come to a certain conclusion, right? But let's do that based off the facts in true nitty gritty fashion. Let's come to a conclusion based off the facts. So let's do that. And shout out to him, and I love your vote, vote, vote. Your other comment, too busy playing politics, business as usual, not good, and it's not good. I don't want party tricks. I don't want to hear vote for your life, vote this one time, you never have to do it again. Or not at the same time, I don't want to hear, oh, vote for your life. Yeah, I keep on telling me to vote for my life, but then when I'm looking for a key legislation to pass of my interest, it's always, oh, just wait. Then you tell me to wait, and then 4 years later, it's like, oh, well, before we can get in office, I got to wait for my life. Like, wait a minute, slow down, guys. At what point are you going to pass legislation I care about? And at the same time, don't tell me Christians, you never have to vote again because we're going to do it so well this time, you're never going to do it. No, the country was created with these term limits on presidents and senators and some of these state local positions because the idea is that you do need to keep voting. You do have to keep innovating change, right? We can't stay stagnant in our thought processes and our ideas. So we have to continue voting. So let's not get pulled into these, political games because we don't have time for that right here. Not on the Rudy show. If you want political games, watch MSNBC and then go watch Fox. They play a lot of political games back and forth on there. All right? Just being honest. Like I said, I'm not trying to be pro-Republican or pro-Democrat. I'm trying to be pro-truth. Even though I know where I stand, I want to present the information as non-biased as possible, insanely, right? So it's kind of insane to support certain folks when it's like, that person's insane, right? So we're going to move through this the best way possible. So let's look at platforms, right? I'm going to start with Donald J. Trump. Now, if you, hey, my bills are comments. I see you, love. Let me get for her. Let me get a heartbeat. You know what I'm saying? She makes my heart beat every time, y'all. It's my boo. Yeah. So first, we're going to go to the Donald J. Trump platform. And what I'm going to do here, real quick, I'm going to share my screen. And I have the address to the website. It's going to be in the description, right? It's in the description. But we're going to go here. It's donaldjtrump.com/platform if you want to see exactly what page I'm on. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Here we are. So you still hear my voice, sharing my screen. Let's go. So this is Agenda 47, obviously because he will be the 47th president to take the role if elected, right? So this is and then also I think it's really cool that on the Trump Vance site, they actually have a click here for if you want to see just the Republican Party platform. Now, obviously, we know since this has come out, he's trying to distance himself from Project 2025. If you haven't read Project 2025, I recommend you go check that out. I think it's very educational. You got to keep in mind that even though Donald Trump may try to distance himself from Project 2025, a lot of his key advisors are associated with Project 2025, and there's a lot of key Republicans battling for certain positions that are also in support of Project 2025. And whether you support it or don't support it, I think it will behoove you to read to learn a little bit more. So go check that out if you get a chance. But we'll run through these real quick. I won't spend a whole lot of time on this screen, but I think it's important to go over these platform ideas. And then as we start talking about the office of the president, who's over promising or under promising, right? And who has the best strategy to accomplishing to what they're talking about. So number one, and we know Trump is big on this, seal the border and stop migrant invasion, right? And then the choice of words are important here. Number two, the largest deportation operation in American history. Keep in mind as we get further down below. Three, end inflation and make America affordable again. All right, like affordable to what standard? Kind of like when he said make America great again. Great for who? When exactly was America great? And then who all does that encompass? Are you talking about the Clinton years, right? Are you referring back to the Democrat? Are you talking about the Bush years? Are you referring to the Reagan years? Am I that stuff? Are you referring to a time where black people couldn't vote or women couldn't vote? Or we're talking about the 20 tiers? Exactly what, right? Interesting language there, but they said end inflation. Are we ever going to end inflation? Never, right? There's always going to be inflation. But can you slow inflation to match what jobs are paying? I believe in that. So when someone says end inflation, this is automatic overpromise. I'm going to call it one. Four, make America the dominant energy producer in the world. Well, we follow him. Like, I think Trump wrote this stuff out himself, right? Five, stop outsourcing and turning the United States into a manufacturing superpower. Now, keep in mind, 45, you can actually get behind. Vote Satan. Number around number three, just know it's not realistic. Four and five, once again, being objective here, I can get behind those two. But we know that he brags about drilling, but we know that Biden has actually done more drilling than Trump, right? So are you going to continue further with what Biden has done? When you talk about stop outsourcing, you said make America great. That's coming back to Ronald Reagan. And we know Ronald Reagan is the reason why he outsourced so many jobs now because those policies. Oh, okay, so my audio was coming in and out again. Maybe I was getting too excited. I'll try to bring my voice down. We'll try that. Don't know why it's doing that. That's annoying. Or maybe it's because I'm sharing my screen. If it gets better, let me know. But then he was talking about stop outsourcing. But once again, that's a callback to Ronald Reagan. And with Reagan, he's the reason those policies are created under his watch. Why an American company like Apple can manufacture their phones in China, right? The ability for us to lose so many jobs abroad in the auto industry, in the manufacturing, that was a direct result of legislation passed through Ronald Reagan and those Republicans, right? Then number six, large tax cuts for workers and no tax on tips. Now, he was the first person out here to say number six. I think I like number six. We also know that Kamala Harris recently said she would do the same thing, but Donald Trump, in all credit, was the first person to say it. No tax on tips, right? That would be interesting. I do know that when it comes to large tax for workers, that is in direct conflict with things he's said already. But according to this platform page, that's what he's saying, right? Just reading the information. I don't make the news. I just report it. Number seven, defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to keep and bear arms. So we know he's pandering to the NRA, but then this whole this whole thing is weird because we've seen a direct threat to our Constitution with January 6th, right? And the way that he attacks his whole process of being tried, being convicted 34 times is in direct conflict with that statement. But that's what he's put on his platform. So take with that as you may. Number eight, prevent World War III, restore peace in Europe and in the Middle East, and build great Iron Dome missile defense shield over our entire country, right? So he said he'll prevent World War III, but then he'll say stuff like, I don't care about what's going on in other countries. The problem with that is we didn't start World War One, nor did we start World War Two. Those wars were actually started between Prussia and Germany and other European nations. As a result of those wars, what started happening? Europe reaching out to us for resources, and then Japan saying, "Oh, well, we're not going to let Americans sit there and make money and pull off the resources." And then we seen what happened in Pearl Harbor, and then we got dragged into the war. So keep in mind when you say prevent World War III, you have to have a little bit of knowledge of World War One and World War Two, and how did America get drawn into those wars. So sometimes simply ignoring is not enough. That's one thing that past Republican presidents, I won't say Donald Trump, but I would say when you start thinking about the Bushes and stuff like that, and people understand, right, always wonder, why do we get involved in these conflicts? Well, these conflicts have a way of expanding themselves. So sometimes we have to get involved early through diplomacy, right? And we know that Donald Trump wasn't the best diplomat when he was in office, just being honest. Now, we've seen what Kamala has done as VP, so it'll be interesting to see what she does next. I really can't tout Biden diplomacy because Biden has kind of been a little bit of a bumble since he's been in, right? So can't give a lot of credit to anybody there, but I can speak to what Harris has tried to do and is actively working on right now as VP, as far as trying to bring some type of resolution to Hamas and Israel, right? Also, it said number 9, in the weaponization of government against the American people. Now that's interesting that he says that, because Donald Trump also supports the immunity for our police, and then he's also praised anytime the National Guard has been set out against people, whether it was um, Houston, or when we during the riots, right? He was really big on supporting using our National Guard against our own citizens. So it's interesting that he has this here, because his comments and his actions, contrary to this, have been the opposite. Number 10, stop the migrant crime epidemic, demolish the foreign drug cartels, fight gang violence, and lock up violent offenders. I'm not messed up about that. Any violent immigrants coming over, I don't want to see that. Demolish the foreign drug cartels, and with that, although we know that historically, Kamala has done a great job of that when she was in California in previous rules. So there's that. Number 11, rebuild our cities, including Washington, D.C., making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. Well, here's the thing. Gentrification is already doing that, unfortunately, right? Fortunate and unfortunate. Being someone that's from DC, I love the fact that our city is better in some ways. Um, Crime is still a thing, but it's not the same as it was in the 90s, right? Let's just be honest about that. But crime is still an issue. These youngins are running out or rounding out, but they're rounding out all across the United States. They all think life is playing Grand Theft Auto. So there's an issue with that. But we see gentrification doing that, and this could be a dog whistle cry to gentrification, right? He brings up Washington D.C., and it's like D.C. is one of the most beautiful cities out there. We have an issue with jobs, but then job creation is something that we need to work on, right? How we take care of our vets. So, interesting thing to build on. 12, strengthen and modernize our military, making it without question the strongest and most powerful in the world, right? We have one of the strongest militaries now. I mean, it's kind of like strengthen and modernize. Yeah, they're kind of doing that now, right? That's something that we've been doing that as a nation. About a solid 52% of our spending is basically within our armed forces and our military. So it's interesting. It's like, I guess, just keep doing what America does, building bombs, because we definitely do that. Number 14, keep the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Now, this is interesting because we see what's going on with BRICS, but then Donald Trump highly supports crypto. And we know crypto and BRICS are almost going hand in hand. So this is, once again, almost like a conflicting statement. Because on one end, you're trying to get the crypto community to say, hey, Donald Trump's your guy. But then you're saying keep the US dollar, the world's reserve currency. But we know that the Federal Reserve hasn't been very kind to crypto. We see what the SEC did against Ripple or XRP. So this is an interesting one for him to navigate, but this is what's on his platform, guys. I'm just reading it off. Number 14, fight for and protect Social Security and Medicare with no cuts, including no changes to the retirement age. So this one is interesting. We know that there's been some Democrats out there that have talked about pushing back the retirement age to 70, right? So this is something that I guess him and Republicans, based off what I've seen, they've been somewhat against, although I believe Project 2025 also talks about pushing the age back. So once again, possibly a conflict. I do know that of registered voters, those over the age of 65 are in favor of Trump in general. This is regardless of race and gender. So this could be one of the reasons. If this is what he's pushing out there, that might get the attention of the 65 older crowd, right? 15, cancel the electric vehicle mandate and cut costly and burdensome regulations, right? So regulations exist for a reason. Keep in mind, most of your regulations, when it comes to vehicles at the federal level, don't really impact Americans all that much. A lot of your regulations are going to happen at the state level. Oh, shout out to Norman on the stream. I see. Yeah, Norman, what's up? Yeah, so we should talk about regulations on vehicles and stuff like that. That happens at the state level. For instance, here in Maryland, we actually get a tax incentive credit about $3,000 for buying an EV. Whereas if you're in Ohio, where my wife is from, they actually charge you an additional tax for purchasing an EV. When I say EV, electric vehicle. So, and then as far as the electric vehicle mandate, that has already been canceled within the Biden administration. They started off at one place and then they drew back from that. So once again, people see things, but then it's kind of like, you need to know your information when you're looking at some of these platform ideals. Number 16, cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, radical gender ideology, other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. Now, this one right here is total BS. Totally disagree with this one. So when it comes to some of the gender stuff, right? I've heard people Democrat and Republican don't agree with that, especially as far as like certain sexuality things. I think certain conversations are an adult conversation, right? I'll say this: I'm not trying to offend anybody, guys. I'm just look at it like so, like a lot of Republicans are against like gender transformation and all that, right? I think if somebody decides they want to be trans, that's on them. Now, when we start talking about it to kids, it's kind of interesting because on one breath, someone can fight and say, well, if somebody identifies as a boy, we should let them. So, okay, I'll just leave that there. But let's talk about it from this standpoint. If your daughter has small breasts and she's 15, are you going to let her go get a boob job? Now, mind you, at this point, she's still identifying as a girl. She's just saying, I want to enhance my feelings as a girl. I want to go get a boob job. Or even more derogatory, if your son, once again, this is a boy who's staying a boy, he's like, yeah, my penis is not big enough. Let me go get a penis enlargement. I mean, for all the parents right now and anyone listening, you probably cringed at me saying that, right? So then it's kind of like, well, what's the difference when we start talking about gender, right? It's an interesting conversation to them. It's like maybe we should, if a child decides they want to identify as a woman and they were born biological male, maybe any decisions towards really moving towards that should happen at age 18. Because there's a lot of things we don't allow our kids to do until 18. You can't get into clubs. You're not even supposed to watch porn until the age of 18. I wouldn't recommend watching porn. But once you're at 18, it's kind of like, hey, that's how you want to do what you do. That's fine. We know that when it comes to smoking, you can't do that to a certain age. When it comes to drinking and cannabis use, you have to be 21. Some things are just adult, right? So I can see how some people get behind that. But the problem is, he's also looping that in with race. So critical race theory, first of all, guys, is a collegiate level conversation. It only happens at the collegiate level. It's only happening in colleges. We do not currently teach critical race theory, K through 12, never have. They're calling anything like learning about the civil rights movement, talking about slavery, books like Uncle Tom's Cabin that's already been in the educational system. They're calling that critical race theory. And then you have people like Governor DeSantis in Florida saying he won't support DE&I. And keep in mind, this is also in front to DE&I. When I say DE&I, we're talking about why did I just have a brain fart, guys, on what D&I is? DE&I. And I've been part of the conversation at multiple companies, right? But he's actually attacking that, and some people are taking this as a way to attack those things. So diversity, equity, and inclusion, right? So we need diversity, we need equity, and we need inclusion. So and keep in mind, inclusion doesn't pretty goes into gender stuff because my thing is if somebody's grown and they decide two men really love each other and marry each other, that's on them, right? Two of my Christians out there, we can't legislate morality just because you have a moral standing on what we should or should not do. Doesn't mean we should make it a law, right? Now, in church, I think you should still keep preaching what you believe in. I think people should be able to manage their homes the way they want to. But when you try to make it law, that's an interesting place you're crossing, and I don't think we should, right? So number 16, for the most part, BS to me. Don't agree with it. 17, keep men out of women's sports. I think we've seen a lot of things where this is very divisive. I would say that having daughters and knowing that men naturally, because of this testosterone, hence why the Olympics even test for testosterone. They don't necessarily test to see if you were born biological man or woman, but they do test for testosterone. And we know that males are born with more testosterone. Even males that take to lower just testosterone, we've seen those males dominate any field they go into when going against women. So you know, am I that messed up about that one? But I do think if someone is adult and trans, there should be a place for them to compete, and maybe we should consider like finding that place where they can compete and make it competitive to everyone involved, right? I'm trying to be very choosy about my words here, but I'm just trying to keep it 100. Also, 18, deport Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. Now, this is interesting because earlier he said in number 7, defend our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, and our fundamental freedoms, including freedom of speech, freedom of religion, and the right to bear arms. But then we get right down here towards the bottom, and this is why I like to share screens. I want you to see it for yourself. In number 18, he says, deport pro-Hamas radicals and make our college campuses safe and patriotic again. Now, you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't seen or heard of any violent killings in support of Hamas at any of these college campuses. I know they've been very disruptive, but that's what protests do, right? I know that it's been inconvenient, and that's what protests do, but they're actually exercising their right and their freedom to speech. And he's talking about deporting them. Now, I can understand if these are radicals in the sense that they start blowing up stuff on campus, but that hasn't happened. So why does he make this comment? And then he's saying to make the campuses patriotic again. Now, here's the thing. Donald Trump hasn't been the most patriotic person, i.e. January 6th. And he's talking about allowing those people to be released from their sentences because these are patriots. Patriots don't storm their political buildings. They don't do that, right? Patriots don't threaten to kill politicians, right? Especially when these politicians haven't been violent. It's not like they're necessarily quote unquote corrupt. I'm throwing up air quotes. But this is interesting language. But so 18 is pretty much BS. 19, secure our elections, including same-day voting, voter identification, paper ballots, and proof of citizenship. Now, 19 at first value, do you have a problem with it? You do. Until you start thinking about what's one of the biggest ways they've kept black people from voting when they have certain laws and restrictions around ID, identification. In some states like Tennessee, you can have a revoked license based off not having car insurance. So then you may not have a valid license. You need to pay that $270 to get a valid license again. So it could become a financial thing, right? We've seen this back in the day when black people started voting. They would start having all these poll taxes to discourage black votes. So 19 is kind of interesting because when you start introducing that, then you gotta wonder, well, who does that affect? So this kind of thinking cap on. It's not that is 19 horrible? Depends on what you know about history, right? Kind of hard to get behind it. And then 20, unite our country by bringing it to new and record levels of success. So if he had just left it with the first part, unite our country, that would be dope. And we do need to unify our country again. Where we are right now is kind of crazy as a country. I mean, we're super divisive, probably more divisive than ever before. But when he talks about uniting our country and bringing it to new record levels of success, it's like, that's just a political comment, right? Like, oh, we're gonna make it better and bigger than ever before. Like, nobody promises of that. And then it's kind of like at the end of the day, I go to Whole Foods, get 2 bags of groceries, and I just drop $200, right? I can go to Giant, which is supposed to be affordable, or Walmart, and still $200 worth of groceries used to go in the back of your trunk. These days, you put it in the front seat of your car because it ain't that much, right? So there's a lot of promises here, but you're still left wanting more. Now, to be fair, I want to go to the Harris Wills website, right? I also put that down here in the description as well. So let's go to it real quick, and this is gonna be quick, and you'll see why. So this is the Harris Waltz website. It's KamalaHarris.com. Right now I'm at the / meet Kamala Harris. But the reason why I'm here instead of a platform page, because guess what? Kamala Harris doesn't have a platform page yet on her website, and the website isn't up to date. And you can buy stuff from the store. You can take action and look up events in your local area. You can donate money if you want to. And you can offer everything from $25, 4,700. Hey, the nitty gritty show, we're taking those same donations. But no policy page. And I've been checking this every day since the DNC. So my first thought was, well, maybe because the DNC just passed, they haven't had a chance to update it yet. I mean, they updated the fact that Waltz is on the ticket. You can meet Tim Waltz. That's available, right? But they haven't put a platform. Now, I do know that Donald Trump's platform page didn't come to be until about maybe a week or two after the RNC. So we'll keep tracking this and see. But currently, and one of her biggest criticisms is what are her platforms and what are her policies she's pushing. Now, if you watch the DNC, you at least got to hear her speak on it. So she called out some things about Donald Trump, and then she counteracted with policies she would go for, right? But I think it'd be nice if they write this down so that way we could be equally critical. So that way I can say, okay, she put this on a platform page, but then we heard her say this, or we heard her say that. Or maybe it may always align. But in the moment, she doesn't have anything, so I can't give her too much credit, to be fair. Because technically, there's nothing you could go to online and say, hey guys, here's Kamala's platform. And I think people have been critical of that, and rightfully so. Right? Well, once again, I'm not trying to push you any direction. I'm just calling out the facts. And the facts is when you look up Kamala Harris and Governor Walz, you don't see a platform page. Now, there's been speeches, there's been things they've said, but they don't have anything on her platform. And there's nothing wrong with being critical about the facts. Okay? So I wanted to put that out there because it doesn't exist. So when you hear people say that, some people argue back and say, "Oh, you're just not using Google very well." Well, you got to use Google very well, and that's what Google brings in for their web page. There's nothing else. There's a bunch of other folks like Pax out there that support them. She's raised a lot of money. She's great at raising money, but she hasn't put out a platform. So we'll watch this over the next week or two. She does have a whole lot of time. Now, some things that could be factors that I've heard political pundits say is that because of the switch from Biden to her, that might be it. One can say that it's because the DNC just passed, so give it some time. I get it, but knowing that the media and people have been critical about this is something that we could easily end. I mean, you had to prepare your speech. Surely there's an idea of what your platform is. Let's update this as soon as possible, right? So I think it's important to update this. Once again, it was easy for me to be very critical of Donald Trump tonight, but that's because he actually has something for me to criticize. So you gotta kind of, you know, right? And so what we're gonna do is we'll call this part one because I don't really want to go over 9 o'clock. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna end the show right about here. Next week when we come back, because we have about 8 weeks before the election. So I still got time to cover everything I want to cover. Next week, what we're going to do is I'll talk about platforms. I'll talk about what's out there tonight. Next week, when we come back, we're going to, 72 days. That's right, Herman. So when we come back next week, actually, am I doing the show next week? Next week is Sunday. No show next week. We will be back. I'll tell y'all when. Hold on. We'll be back that following Sunday. Because come on, realistically, next week is Labor Day. Matter of fact, at our church, shout out to Kingdom Fellowship, we did all white Sunday because there's a lot of all white parties going on, like Dinner on Blanc and all that kind of stuff, because this is, if you go by the old standard, you're not supposed to wear white after Labor Day. So a lot of people are doing like all white parties this week, last time to really rock out all white. So, anyways, no show September 1st because that's Labor Day weekend. We're actually our baby's godparents. We're gonna be spending some time with them. So no show next week, but we will be back on the 8th. And when we come back, we're gonna break down the powers of the president. Now, in summary, I will tell you this. The president has control over executive offices, right? So we know that they can veto a bill or support a bill that comes from the House. We know that the president, when you start thinking about executive power, it's not just the president and the president and the vice president. You also have to consider that the president picks his presidential cabinet, and they actually run all those main departments of government. So when you're thinking about State Department, Department of Justice, Department of Labor, Department of Transportation, we start talking about Veteran Affairs, right? And then under these departments, you have multiple agencies. So like DOJ, FBI, ICE, U.S. Marshals, right? So when you start thinking about who's going to give you the better cabinet, that's even something you have to really think about when you're picking a president, because it's just part of his power. And then we start thinking about jobs, right? Which departments support jobs? You got to think about labor. We start thinking about, our food, or we start complaining about medicine, right? Then that's Department of Agriculture, right? So then it's like, well, who are we putting on top of that role? So these are things we have to really think about, because when we're putting people in, when we're talking about electing a president, you got to understand what power do they really have. And then keep in mind, the president is also the commander in chief. So as commander in chief, that means they have direct influence of how our military operates. So like when Bush decided, yeah, we sending them boys over for a little shock and awe out there in the desert, he has that power, right? He has agency over our government. So then once again, who do you want being able to click those nuclear bomb war codes, right? That's important. That's really important. Or how do we utilize our military? Because we can use our military to support countries. We can use our military to quell issues. We can use our military to be bullies. And guess what? America's guilty of doing all of those things, right? So you have to be objective in your thinking to think, wow, if somebody has control of this very powerful military, how do I want them using this military, right? And the personality behind that is very important. How well that person listens to the advisor of him is important. I'll use an example here, Obama. When he ran against Tim McCain, he was very anti-Afghanistan and Iraq. Just go back to 2007. You will see that. He was very anti-Afghanistan and Iraq. He wanted to pull us out immediately as commander in chief. When he got into the office, though, and then those various admirals and generals spoke to him and let him see now behind the carpet what's really going on, Obama changed his tune very fast. He actually extended us in Afghanistan and Iraq because he was able to see that, hey, you know what? Now that I can see what's going on, we kind of need to stay in these regions, right? I respected Obama for that because he showed me he was objective enough to switch gears within reason. And then you want to elect a president that can do that for you, right? I think that's very important. So once again, I'm not pushing you in a direction. I know why I'm voting and based off what I'm voting for, but I want people to come to their own conclusion based off the facts. So hopefully, maybe even next week, Kamala has a platform listed on her website, and I'll go over it with you guys. I'm not saying that next week, but come September 8th, we'll go over it together. Sure. If it's there, but if it's not there, I'm going to call it in again to the brief and say, hey, she was able to for my page and share it with you guys. Something else I've also listed in the description, so I think it's good for you guys to do your homework. I'm giving you 2 weeks, 2 weeks to do your homework. Go to this website right here. It's actually in the description. Here, I'm going to share my screen real quick because it's what we're going to go over when we talk, guys. It's at whitehouse.gov. Y'all know me. When I like to pull information, I like to go to .govs and .edus. .edus, not because it's necessarily always the Bible when you go to a .edu, but I like a .edu because it goes through, their information goes through a certain level of rigor and testing in the educational arena, right? You just can't put anything typically on a .edu. There's there's a little bit of, you know, testing and evaluation, if you will. And on .gov, you're not supposed to just lie on that, right? Once again, it's, various people are looking at it and, rechecking and, you know, validating the information that's given. So when we're talking about the executive branch, it's like, hey, you know what? Let's go to whitehouse.gov where they break it down for you. And in future conversations, when we start talking about Congress, when we start talking about the Senate, that's the legislative branch, we're going to deep dive into that before the election because some of you have some key congressional and senatorial elections going on in your state. We're going to talk about the judicial branch, meaning the U.S. Supreme Court, and then all those courts that fall under the U.S. Supreme Court, like in your state, right? Because some of these are also appointed through our federal branches of government. So this is important. We'll talk a little bit about elections and voting. We're going to talk about state and local government. And if we have time, sometime before the election, we want to get into the Constitution. I think it's very important here on the Nitty Gritty Show that we use this as an opportunity to train, instruct, inform, right? There's a lot of talk here, talk there, but nobody ever really gives you those nitty gritty morsels of information that help you grow as a person, not grow to my agenda, not grow to my thought process, but allow you to say, well, you know what, Juan, based off knowing the facts of how things work, I'm still going to vote this person. And you know what? At that point, it's like, hey, that's fine. At least you understand, and based off how you feel, both in what could actually happen within the power of this office you're voting for, you feel comfortable doing that. And at that point, I have nothing to say to you. There's nothing, when I say nothing else to say, meaning you have no argument or any complaint. It's just like, hey, you're making your best informed decision. And at least now you're informed, and based off your thought process, you're saying this is the best decision for me and my house, right? So that's what we want to offer in the Nitty Gritty Show. And as we pass the election, we get further into the year, we start getting into the holidays, we're start talking about family, we're start talking about relationships, because we know y'all need that kind of conversation. And y'all know Katrina can't wait to have those combos, right? But they're so important. And once again, we'll bring in the facts. We'll talk about what the therapists are saying, what's in the books, for my Christians out there, what does the Bible, what does the Word of God have to say about that? Because a lot of people claim they're people of faith, but then very often they won't reference the Bible. I've heard people say, oh man, you gotta go for God. You gotta hear. And then it's kind of like, I need to hear a word from God. I read the word. I know what the word of God says. I'm making my decision based off the tangible word of God that's been left in the Bible for me to read. And based off that, I'm making a decision. I'm not going to pray and get something contrary to the Bible. That's what the Bible's there. So that's not belief. Now, if you don't believe in the Bible and all that stuff, I mean, I'm not even going to try to argue that point because that's not the point of it. The point of it is, though, if you do proclaim to be a Christian or whatever faith that you support, and if there's a text that kind of writes out how you manage your faith, if you're not referring to the text. So if I'm a Muslim, I'm not referring to the Quran. Keep in mind, Muslims also read the Bible as well, First and New Testament. How are you going to pray to Allah or pray to God or whoever, and then you're not, referring back to the text of your faith? The text of your faith is giving you the foundation of what you believe. If you're hearing anything contrary to the text of your faith, you have to then wonder, is the adversary in your faith talking to you? Or is that just you, your flesh, talking to you? Right? And I know that offends a lot of people because I got a lot of my little super Christians out here, right? That love talking about speaking in tongues. They love talking about, because, God told me. But then the stuff God be telling you, I'm like, hey, what God told you? Because according to XYZ, that ain't what Ephesians says. That's not what Corinthians says. That's not what Joshua says, or David. I'm sorry, not David, but First and Second Samuel, or that's not what First and Second Kings say. You didn't find that in Deuteronomy or Leviticus. What are you talking about, right? And the God says my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. A lack of knowledge. So hopefully we'll give you give you some knowledge back, and you'll work from there, right? So let me do my closing music because I got my volumes. I'm gonna do today. So I'm gonna do a little reggae thing in the background, right? Got a little reggae thing kicking in the background, right? So as I do my little closing shout outs, we got this little stuff playing in the background. Hope y'all like it. So anyways, here comes Eastern shout outs. Shout out to Greatest Shit Breakfast for tuning in. Love you guys. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Norm. Shout out to my man G5, G5 Gaming. Yeah, all that in the chat. I love it. But anyways, I had some birthdays I want to shout out. So got some family members and stuff. I definitely some good friends I need to call out. So shout out to my sister-in-law. Today's her birthday, Jasmine. All right. Love you, boo. Just about to her birthday. Not gonna say her age, but she looked good for it. I can tell you that. Shout out to my man Prince Esco, man. Who else had his birthday 2 days ago? Also 2 days ago, shout out to my cousin. Thompson, or William Thompson, but shout out to you, sir. You've been great for me, actually. Oh man, we got some good things in the family, right? Shout out to my boy Hassan McRae. His birthday was 2 days ago as well. Shout out to my uncle Ralph. His birthday was 3 days ago. And I'm gonna have some birthdays. This week, coming out to my friend David Haskins. Shout out to my cousin Jim Thompson. Let me see, who else? Shout out to Sister Vicky Sutherland. Birthday's coming up. That's cool. Shout out to my cousin Bush Ross. His birthday will be coming up on Thursday. So and then I see some other birthdays. Actually, let me go through a few more because we'll be gone for 2 weeks. So then let me see who else got a birthday coming up. Shout out to my man Mitch. If you've been with the Nitty Gritty Show for a long time, there was a young man named Mitch that came on the show. His birthday's coming up August 31st. Shout out to my man, Otis Hudson. His birthday will be September 1st, but we're not gonna have a show. Shout out to my man Joseph. His birthday will be coming up September 3rd. Let's see who else. Let's see. Shout out to Artiste Ray. His birthday will be coming September 4th. I think it's been Virgos. I think so. It's called Virgos. Yeah, Virgos, because the twins are September 16th. Yeah, so this is on Virgo. I'm not into the zodiac sign, guys. I don't follow it. I don't live by it. Nah, I believe in Jesus, right? So shout out, to the Virgos, and then also shout out and lastly to my man Theo Baldwin. And then let me see. Did we have any anniversaries? Any key anniversaries that passed? I would have sworn something like, oh, that's right. Little Mahogany just got married. Yes, shout out to Mahogany and Ernie's man. I see that they just got married. I think it was like today or recently, like just happened, I think. So like, yeah, so shout out to them. So yeah, that's what's up. And if you had it, well, I think I called it my parents' anniversary. They just celebrated 38 years earlier this month. So yeah, and if you got an anniversary coming up, let us know so we can shout you out on the Nitty Gritty Show. But look, man, thank you guys for tuning in. We got 2 minutes left, so you got a minute or so of your day back to you. To follow us on all platforms. It's in the description. Check us out. Once again, we want to donate some money. It's the Cash App right there. We'll take it. We'll definitely take it. But we appreciate you guys for rocking with us. We will see you guys again September 8th. Right? Shout out to my man Brent. Oh, I got him. Hold on, before I roll out, let me give you a nice little to my man Brent. You know what I'm saying? That's what's up. You know what I'm saying? Thank you guys for watching. And look, I appreciate you guys being on. We love you and appreciate you. Thanks for joining the show. The show is always available for playback. Last show wasn't because I had showed the clip of the Olympics and the Olympics right there. So they snatched that video down, so it is not available if you click on it. But we didn't do it this time. After everything I showed was legit because I showed a .gov, that's public information, and then I showed 2 platform websites for these prospective candidates. So everything put out there was legit. So I don't think this video is gonna block this time. You hear me? So anyways, we'll see you guys September 8th. We'll dig into some more about the political powers of the presidents, right? And thank you guys for watching, man. Y'all be blessed. Thank you, Brent, for the shout out. And to my parents, that's love. And we'll see you guys September 8th. Peace and a bottle of hair grease, y'all. We out of here.